So the CEO of Larian Studios just recently had an interview with Bloomberg talking about their use of generative AI inside their development studios, particularly in the very early stages when it comes to developing pretty much any core aspect of the game, from artwork, level design, all of that stuff. And today's video, we're going to talk about just what he's doing with it and how it's not the characterization that all the gaming community, developers to players right now that have with AI, that's saying it's going to take our jobs, we're just going to be given AI slop left and right. No, I think he actually puts forth a very good use case of generative AI in the development stages of a game in a very ethical and honestly a pretty obvious, smart way to go about using it that I think makes a lot of sense. So we got an article by PC Gamer that's going to walk us through it. Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian defends itself as fans react to generative AI use. I'm not entirely sure we are the ideal target for this level, scorn quoted from the CEO. And I'm going to butcher your name, so I apologize, but Sven Vinck, V-A-N-C-K-E. I'm just going to go by CEO or Swen, but nonetheless, he gave a few interviews from a few different time periods, but basically lumped together saying what we're doing inside Larian Studios is much different than what a lot of people perceive and what a lot of other people are doing, people being other studios. So, said earlier this year, the Baldur's Gate 3 studio is using a generative AI to automate certain prototyping tasks, such as creating mock levels for designers to work with before replacing them with handmade art. So I can imagine just from that introductory alone is that they're using AI, generative AI nonetheless, to essentially create just blanket nothingness, just chaos in front of them that they can start molding into something over the course of development of the game, which I think is a very obvious and a very straightforward way to kind of just start. How many times have you guys stared at a blank screen when you're writing an essay and you're just like, dude, I don't know where to begin. Like, what do I say first? And you're just, spinning the cogwheel in your brain being like, how do I get this started? And I can imagine, especially for that particular example with the essay thing, is that you could just have AI give you an idea and then you just go down that way. You refine it so that 100% of the original chaos, the Play-Doh that you're working with, you don't have any of that raw still there. It is now 100% covered in your creative interpretation of the raw resources that were handed to you. That makes an incredible amount of sense. And I don't know. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below how you guys feel about the use of AI and all that stuff. But nonetheless, this article is going to point out just a little bit how the fans, as well as colleagues, more or less, people who worked inside Larian and also other AAA studios, are giving them a little bit of pushback on this idea of using it in the first place as just at any stage of development. A lot of people have voiced their concerns about not using it at all because of fears, more or less. But I think, again, and this goes back to the previous videos that we've talked about different use cases of AI in game development, the Ubisoft thing with teammates, I think if used correctly, AI could be a very helpful tool in increasing immersion. That's more or less the thing that we are all chasing as gamers, especially in the case of RPGs, which is another topic for another video that I want to make at some point. But nonetheless, if it's something that can be used as a tool to not make games complete garbage, because that's also the fear with AI, is we're going to get nothing but AI slop, I believe we are. And it's going to come from people that should not have done it in the first place, that do not belong in this field because they think they can just lean on the crutch of AI and it'll carry them to, tens of millions of dollars in revenue in whatever they're making. I'm willing to bet some people actually might do that, but no one's going to find the appeal to it, and I don't think they're going to be long-lasting examples of good AI use cases. Give it 5-10 years and AI might blow us out of the water, but currently right now, I can see something with what Larian is using is that they're using it to mock a map of the game, and then just kind of iterating and talking and going from there. And that's pretty much what this article lays out, and this is pretty much what Swen was talking about in earlier interviews, in the recent interview that he published with Bloomberg, or that Bloomberg published with him. That is more or less what he is trying to push forward, is that relax, we're not leaning super heavy on the AI, we're not firing people in place of it, and I'm just like, okay, good to hear, because I'm looking forward to Divinity and I don't want to play some AI slop like pretty much all of us. So We'll go a little bit further in, but yeah, Sven reiterated in the interview that the studio isn't using generative AI to create any of the art, voices, or writing we see in the games. After the interview was published, he also said that the quote-unquote pushing hard isn't a correct characterization of Larian's AI policy. The Bloomberg article said that they're pushing hard in using generative AI. And he is saying it's not quite like that. That's not the correct characterization, which is honestly good to hear. And that AI is not being used to develop concept art. So the very early stages, what I see this as is in cinematography and movie making and animation, all that stuff, you have something called pre-visualization, previs, which is a very, very bare bones mock-up of what a scene should look like in the very early stages of something. You seriously have storyboard work where you have, 10, 20, 30, maybe even 100 frames individually that are walking the writers and all the people involved in the project through, a few minutes of whatever's going on. And that's more or less what I get from this. It's the pre-viz of a 3D environment, just for the case of using it for, creating like a town somewhere in the game in particular, which makes a lot of sense. Now, naturally, you can create that concept art with people just doing it straight up, but AI can nonetheless just throw something out there, and from 100% of what they gave you, you can 100% just terraform, transform, move things around and do all the stuff, refine it so that it does not look like that AI slop that they were given, but nonetheless, the AI has given them the Play-Doh to work with. That's pretty much how I'm looking at this, and I think that's not a bad use case of it. The very early ideation stages, quote unquote, is what he's said in that particular article. So, no, sounds about good. Now, again, developers inside Larian Studios, developers inside of other studios, and even fans have voiced their concerns saying this is bad. And people have straight up said, I'm not going to play any games made by Larian Studios and probably other studios because they are using AI at any stage of the game. Just a straight up boycott, which I think is a little disingenuous, to be completely frank. Using a tool such as this in the way that at least the CEO of Larian is putting out, I think is worth worth seeing. It's worth seeing the finished product. Now, we have seen in other games that there were some generative AI bits that were used that made it into the final project, and I consider that, just a mistake. Kind of like how how long ago was this? The final season of Game of Thrones where who was it? Daenerys Targaryen, the actress, can't remember her name right now, but you can see that there was a Starbucks cup in a shot that was not thrown out of the scene. No one caught it. No one caught it in editing, and actually got uploaded, and that was by far and away the most hilarious thing in the world. Naturally, they went back into it and just cut it out. So it's like you will make those mistakes. Everyone will make those mistakes. Those will just happen. Can they be caught, and then can they be fixed later on with a patch, especially in particular with video games? Absolutely. So, I feel like we need to give development studios the benefit of the doubt a little bit when it comes to using this, because it's still relatively new. And again, using AI to even catch some of those issues is another use case that people are using it for. Like coding issues and stuff like that. One in particular, and I don't remember if it was in this article or a different one, but as you're going through script, for instances, and you've got a bunch of different cooks in the kitchen, more or less, who are putting together so many different corresponding, or in the case of Baldur's Gate 3, once you start the game, you have so many diverting pathways that can take the player a million different ways. You can't have inconsistencies and crossovers that don't make sense in the story, because people, the immersion is going to get thrown completely out the window. So AI can nonetheless check those to make sure that nothing is becoming super inconsistent or just completely wrong, that you're just going to lose out on finding over the course of developing the game. And I can see, again, those are use cases for AI that I think can actually work. They can work better than a person, even though a person is probably going to be there to, I don't want to say guide it through it, but nonetheless watch it and then fix it after that. You can't ask AI to find the problem and then fix the problem, I think, depending on what the problem is. But, more people are going to have the tool that is AI to speed through the development and I would say up the accuracy of catching those issues. And that's just all, again, use cases that we're going to have to see. But nonetheless, I think, there was an artist inside Larian Studios. Her name was Selena Tobin, I don't know, who's credited as a junior environments artist on Baldur's Gate 3, said on Blue Sky that she loved working at Larian until they brought it in to start using it. Quote, reconsider and change your direction like yesterday, wrote Tobin. Show your employees some respect that they are world-class and do not need AI assistants to come up with amazing ideas. Now, I think that's a little blown out of proportion. They are world-class and do not need AI assistants. Begs the question if the generative AI tool that Larian is quote-unquote pushing in the studio is required or maybe completely optional. Or maybe you don't even need to be part of the, the core group of people who are using generative AI at the very beginning of creating a thing. And then, it goes through the pipeline through a bunch of people until it hits a quote unquote finished product. I feel like anyone can choose, well, maybe not anyone can choose where they are in that pipeline. Maybe there is still a hierarchy, seniority sort of deal, which, I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. I don't see that, again, as a huge issue. Now, again, of course, be sure to let me know in the comments where you guys can see holes in the use case of AI in game development. Just bigger issues other than they're going to be hiring less and firing more people because AI is just going to take over their jobs. Like, I want more or less, of an argument that leans with that as its premise, but have a lot more teeth, a lot more meat to that argument. Not just they're going to take our jobs. Like, it's honestly not good enough. I can see people not hiring because of, and this is happening way after the fact. This is happening way after the fact. But currently, as it stands right now, what is the bigger fear? And I can also see in the case of a game like Divinity or even Baldur's Gate 3, imagine if they had these tools and even better tools down the road where you can hire even more artists and you can pretty much like 2x, if not 3x the size of the game, because why not, right? And, you can even tack on maybe another $10 to $20 because this game that, was speculated to be 50 hours worth of narrative, 50 hours worth of gameplay, probably maybe 1 or 2 replays, depending on what kind of game we're talking about. And, having this AI tool with us, being able to hire more people to beef up the game, beef up the scope and size of the game to maybe 100 hour plus, 150, 200 hours plus of just raw game, because there's more work that we can, and more stuff that we can put into it. And it doesn't cost us, 5x the overhead. I know I'm basically saying that they're going to be hiring less people, but when a studio has a couple hundred people before AI and then they can add another 50 to 100 people with AI after the fact, they grew. They might not have grown 200, 300x, but that's why there's how many game development studios out there? And again, the argument is flimsy still, because AAA studios are losing out to indie studios and anyone can hop in and start doing that. Is it an uphill climb? Absolutely. Is it worth it in the end, especially if you have a good idea? Talk to Expedition 33. That's all I got to say. But yeah, so aside from the developer having an issue, of course, fans are also voicing similar concerns. And then there's a quote, back in April, our stance, and this is a quote from Michael Dowse, who is the publishing director at Larian. Back in April, our stance on AI and workflows was established, so I'm not sure why this is coming up now as a controversy, the timing of it. We continue to hire people across all departments, not trim. Now, again, they might be hiring 10, 15 people where they could have been hiring before AI 25 to 30 people. But that's why you have multiple studios. That's why people do their own indie thing. The threshold, or I guess the maximum amount of people that they could have hired may have dropped, but I think the floor has also been risen for all these other studios to, more or less pick up that slack and be competitors in this very wide market. So, it's more of a macro, broad viewpoint. Our goal is to make life better for individual workflows, not worse, which I think generative AI can help do. We want to make games better. We want to make better games that don't feature AI content in them, where much of the industry will feature AI content. And we can see that in, for instance, I forget the name of the game, Marathon in particular, and that whole controversy. That's a good use case against the improper use of AI. Not the use case of AI, but the improper use of it. We want everyone to have fulfilling creative roles and keep their jobs in an industry of mass layoffs, which we have seen time and time again. We will see as we are halfway through December how 2026 is going to look like. In other words, I'm not entirely sure we are the ideal target for this level of scoring. Okay, so yeah, that quote was from Michael, not from the CEO, but nonetheless. So yeah, again, guys, be sure to let me know in the comments your thoughts on generative AI use in video games and whether or not you kind of agree with Larian's stance on it a little bit. So, and then I believe this is also a quote from the CEO. Holy F, guys, we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept arts with AI. Yeah, Vink wrote, I think on X. We have a team of 72 artists, of which 23 are concept artists, and we are hiring more. The art they create is original, and I'm very proud of what they do. And I would beg the question, or not beg the question. I would put in that when the AI creates just slop that they mold from. Again, Plato has just said something my brain just kind of landed on as a original starting point. It's not coming from anywhere else. I mean, realistically. And I think as AI progresses, and that was the original issue with earlier versions of AI, is that they're pulling from the internet, from already established artwork, and then they kind of made something new. I think as we go forward with AI, they're quite literally going to make something out of nothing. Maybe not as nothing, but you'll never find the origin of that something. So, of that nothing, more or less. I was asked explicit about concept art and their use of Gen AI. I answered that we use it to explore things. I didn't say that we use it to develop concept art. The artists do that, and they indeed are world-class artists. And again, I kind of agree. They use it to explore ideas. They take raw input from AI and just go from there. And I can totally understand it. And again, this is previs. This is just something that, again, I landed on that just makes total sense. Now, of course, people made previs, but I think even in Hollywood, previs is being used with a little bit of AI to, instead of the painstaking process of going through hundreds of frames of storyboard, you still more or less have to do that, but AI nonetheless gets the ball rolling. And that is something I think a lot of people can understand, again, with the essay example, is that you're just staring at nothing until you make something, that writer's block, more or less. You just need AI to just throw stuff at the screen for you to be like, I don't like that. Let me move it like this way, and then you just start from there. I totally see that argument, and I totally see that for artists that struggle with that particular issue. I totally see it. Now, again, that doesn't mean that people will stop with that initial input from the AI and be like, this is the finished product, enjoy. It's like, no. If it sucks, and we don't play it. It's seriously going to become that. AI slop is going to be found out, and then we're just not going to interact with it. But there are AI-generated things that we all are just like, you know what, this is actually pretty good, and especially the music. I know some of you people know out there know particular music songs that were AI-generated that you're just like, oh, you know what, this is actually pretty good. And some people sat with it, even though you know it's 100% AI. Totally is what it is. So, I don't know, guys. I feel like, especially with the development of Divinity coming from Larian Studios, I feel confident that they're using it in a very good way that is just going to benefit themselves, the people working with it, all the concept artists and all that stuff, and for the players that are eventually going to play the game. So that is just my viewpoint on this. I feel like this is pretty good. Time will tell how everyone else is going to interpret this article in particular. Whether or not they're going to implement similar ideas to their workflow in AAA studios and even indie studios, and whether or not, our games are going to evolve significantly because their workflows are going significantly more smoother and less friction over the course of time. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, another use case of AI in game development that I think we need to examine and be like, you know what, I kind of agree with this, or straight up, hey, be sure to let me know in the comments. Do not be afraid. Nah, this sucks. I'm not playing Divinity because of AI. Just straight up. Be sure to elaborate, please. Be sure to elaborate. I really want to get more feedback from you guys if you guys are up to giving me that feedback, because I want to be more informed as I can be from you guys about certain things that maybe perspectives I do not see. I can't see every perspective out there. I can just only see my own, and I can see perspective of the CEO of Larian here, because I think this makes a decent amount of sense. So be sure to let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. I'd be very interested to read about it. So for sure, dudes, I'm out of here. That's gonna be it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys watched all the way through, be sure to give this video a like and be sure to sub for more. I would greatly appreciate it. So we will be excuse me, I can't speak anymore. We will be back on tomorrow with another video. So with that, dudes, I'm out of here. You guys have a good rest of the day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, I will see you guys later.